Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. After a slight shipping mishap, I am bringing you a review for the new Transformers Robot Enhanced Design, Transformers Prime Arcee. Arcee is one of two new figures in the second wave of the Robot Enhanced Design, or r.e.d, or Redline, whatever you want to call it. She's joined by her wave mate Cheetor, who I just reviewed previously to her, and she is a character from the 2010 CGI cartoon Transformers Prime. And admittedly, one of the more popular characters to come out of that. So it is really cool seeing her get the r.e.d treatment, because none of her toys really did justice to the CGI model. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Arcee's packaging, then we'll open it up. We'll see Arcee herself, check out the articulation, see her accessories. Be doing a few group shots and comparisons today. And then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Arcee comes in your standard r.e.d packaging. We get a big open window on the front so you can see the figure. Nice bit of character art that has the signature color breakaway of the r.e.d line. And it's kind of ironic that the purple's coming off her blast effect here, because I'll show you in a second. Around the back you get renders for the toy, which do seem to cast her lighter gray in a much darker shade than the final product. And unfortunately, more accurate shade than what we get. You can also see she comes with quite a few accessories. She gets her hand-mounted blaster here, her arm blades. She gets little slash effects for those arm blades. And she gets a cube of Dark Energon, which is pretty cool. I think it's the first time we've really received something in plastic form for Dark Energon. And now I mentioned those little blast effects because now let's see her accessories. You'll notice, man, where are those little purple blast effects? Oh, they're here, but they're not purple anymore. They're light gray like her blades. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know who thought opaque gray fire blast effects were a good idea. Like, of all the things to get left on the cutting room floor, that's an odd one. She at least gets the Dark Energon cube in the accurate clear purple, but yeah, I don't know, man. Like, that's a real blemish on this figure. But you can see the other accessories. You get the arm blades. You get some closed-fisted hands, because she comes packaged with, like, her trigger finger hands for her gun. Her guns, actually, because there's two of them. And then, you know, the Dark Energon cube. So, I'm already a little disappointed with what I see, but we're going to open her up, give her a fair shake, and see how she compares to the transforming versions of this character, as well as the other r.e.d toys. Okay, here we get Arcee with all of her parts laid out. And you'll notice that, just like Cheetor, her chest plate can actually come off, so that's pretty cool. And you get a good look at the inner workings under the motorcycle chest kibble there. Very nicely sculpted. Got what looks like kind of a spark chamber for the little port for the chest to plug into. There's the chest piece itself. You turn it around, and you get to see all that cool little bits of circuitry and stuff underneath. So again, I love that detailing there. It's really neat. Go ahead, let's cover up her modesty there. All right. So now, as far as Arcee herself, I really don't like the colors. I'm not gonna lie. They end up coming off as a lot flatter than the renders make them appear. The only part that really has any sort of metallic quality to it is this copper color, which itself is a problem, because all these areas where you see this copper, that's actually supposed to be metallic pink per the cartoon. So they made a pretty drastic change to her color scheme, and you know, that really bugs me because Arcee had such a unique color scheme. The whole blue on pink thing was, you know, very sleek. It, you know, made her more than just the pink girl robot while still homaging the character's roots. And this kind of just tosses that out the window and swaps out the pink for copper for some reason. And, you know, I'm surprised I didn't notice that sooner. I also really don't like this really flat, light gray they use. It very much reminds me of the first wave r.e.d figures, which I really hated their flat colors. Made them look super cheap. So yeah, not a fan of the colors. I feel they really dropped the ball there in terms of accuracy. When it comes to articulation, though, Arcee's got, quite a bit going on. She's got the ball-jointed head, which is nice. She has shoulders that lift up and down, and they kind of ratchet in a way. Get a little bump there. They can swing back and forth. Get a single bend elbow. Swivel there. The wrists are on your standard, universal joint setup there on a post. They come out with quite a bit more difficulty than Cheetor's, which is a little worrying because she's got these tiny little posts for her hands. So, yeah, yikes. Be careful with those. Now, she has an ab crunch, but it's not very functional, right? So you can bend her abdomen back here. You got room for it. And then just kind of, it doesn't stay, though. It just kind of wants to pop back to a neutral position. And you can bend it forward, too, and it doesn't want to stay. So, yeah, it's kind of useless. There's too much rubbing with the plastics here. It just wants to go back to a neutral position every time. So, yeah, it kind of doesn't serve much of a purpose there. She does have a waist swivel. And you can see that this whole piece right here, this pelvic region, it's loose. It just kind of sits on her like this, which is good for articulation. It's a little floppy. So that enables her to kind of turn every which way, which is neat. Her plastics are very soft, and that has a lot to do with the fact that she uses a lot of, tiny angles and stuff, so I get why it has to be that way. The hips are universal, so they go out, though not as far as I'd like. That's as far as she can lift her leg up. They swing back and forth. Get a high thigh swivel. Get single bend knees. And you also get a knee swivel, so that's interesting. Get two swivels here. And you get down to her feet. Her feet are interesting because they use kind of a same universal joint, right? So you get rocking here with the ankles. And then this does swivel here, but then the toes actually move on their own too. So very articulated little feet. You can see all this nice detailing here where the kibble folds up like your CGI model. So yeah, she looks good as far as the molding. She's got the trademark little wheel in her back that the toys were never able to really capture accurately. The sculpting is great. The feel of the plastic, it does feel very cheap. A little squishy almost. The failure of an ab crunch is an issue. And then the colors, again, the colors to me are the worst part. They bug the heck out of me. It doesn't look right. The eyes, they try to go for that kind of layered light effect, and it's okay. It doesn't look as good as the renders, but it looks pretty decent. And yeah, she's got the lips. The lips are pretty pink. I don't know why they didn't use that color for the rest of her, but oh well. Alright, so you get all that. Now we see the accessories. You get your Dark Energon Cube, which is probably my favorite part of this whole set, which probably isn't a good thing. Shouldn't be my favorite part. You get her two blasters. You get her closed-fisted hands. And I want to point out, the hands she comes packaged with, they're trigger fingers, right? And I assumed they were for holding the guns, except you realize there's no configuration where she can actually hold these. These don't swing down and become handles or anything. So her trigger finger hands are kind of pointless. And they're definitely trigger fingers too, because when you look at the palms, they have the groove cut into them to hold a weapon of some sort, but she doesn't actually include one. Now, she may be able to hold other r.e.d. figures' weapons, but that's a weird choice. Really weird choice that they gave her those hands when they could have given her something more dynamic, more like maybe the open hands that Cheetor had. I don't know. I can't explain it. I'm thinking plans change and they never really updated the hand sculpt to compensate. That's all I can think of. And then you get her signature arm blades, which can be attached or removed depending on the pose. And your flat gray blast effects. Yay for that. Okay, so let's get a look at these accessories and how they interact with Miss Arcee here. So let's go ahead and attach her arm blades. They only attach one way with the blade facing forward. You can see there's a little slot with a deeper hole in there, so it lines up perfectly with this. It'll pop in place like that. Same thing here. Okay. There you go. All right. So you get those. So she can go ahead and engage in all sorts of melee combat, which is neat. And then you can go ahead and attach her blast effects to the blades. They just clip around these grooves here, just like so. You're supposed to have the wider part toward the tip of the blade there. At least officially. You can do it however you want. It goes either way. All right. So you attach it here and here. And again, this would be really cool if these actually looked like blast effects. They just look like part of the blade. It's like you gave her like jagged saw blades or something. So I don't know, the effects really lost there. Like, I hate that they dropped the ball with this so much. And you know this is a conscious decision. They're like, oh, well, I know we advertise it as clear purple, but, you know, we like money, so... Alright, so you can do the blades if you want. You can give her the closed-fisted hands if you'd like to see that. Boy, these little posts make me so nervous. Afraid I'm going to break one of them one of these days. That's the wrong hand. Derp, derp, derp. Alright, there we go. Alright. So you get kind of more dynamic fists, which she can really look like she's about to put them up, huh? About to beat somebody up. I like that. Or, you know, more dramatic, like, ¿Por qué? So that's cool. And then lastly, you can trade out her hands for her blasters. Just like the cartoon, where in Prime, a lot of the characters had like wrist-mounted weapons that their hands just kind of transformed into. So you finally get to properly enact that on an Arcee toy. Now, unfortunately, this one's got a bit of a bend to it. Like most of these r.e.d. toys, they come with bent parts because they're soft plastic. But yeah, so you can do this. So she can look like she's ready to just take it to some Viacons or r.e.d or something. Ooh, that'd be a character I'd like to see in red is r.e.d with a nice robot mode. Because yeah, if you ever saw the actual transforming one, it's kind of a nightmare. It's terrible. So maybe that's the way they need to go with her, is just give her a cool r.e.d. toy. I'd buy it. I'd buy it. Should go really well paired with Arcee. They could have the two bitter rivals duking it out. Okay, here's our first group shot. And this is with the two other Arcee molds. Now you may notice this is not actually Arcee because I don't have first edition Arcee. This is actually the club exclusive Transmutate, but it uses the same mold, so I have it here for, you know, visual reference. And then this is the second attempt at an Arcee toy in the more widely available Robots in Disguise subline of the Transformers Prime series. And you can see they're all quite different. The first Arcee is actually, funnily enough, almost the exact same height as our new r.e.d. figure. Pretty tall deluxe. And the original one had a very, you know, skeletal appearance to it. And it had some kibble, but it was quite different. Like the little wing kibble was actually on her arms instead of her back. So, you know, made for a more compact robot mode, but not very show accurate. The second one was a bit smaller, which is probably appropriate because Arcee is actually a rather small character. And she actually gains one of her little blaster rifles that you can either have her hold like this or slide it forward to look like it's, you know, taking the place of her hand, but then it becomes a bit unwieldy. Of course, that comes at the expense of one of her arm blades. She only includes one. So, you know, sacrifices are made there. And then she does get the back wing kibble, albeit much more significant than the CGI model, which it doesn't look bad in of itself. Makes it look like actual wings, but, you know, puts her pretty off model. And her colors, this Arcee's colors, they're a bit too light blue, and then they replaced all the pink with just more silver, so she's even less, show accurate than the new toy as far as colors, despite the fact that this new toy completely screwed the colors anyway. So yeah. And as far as the colors on the original, I'm not really sure how they compare because, this is just kind of a stand-in. So you can see kind of how the concept's evolved. Now, as far as actually matching the CGI model proportions and all that, our r.e.d. figure's the clear winner. It's kind of the whole point of it. I will say, though, that I really do like the Robots in Disguise version that they did. Even though it's a bit off model, I think it's just a quality Transformer. It looks good. I like the big wing motif. And Hasbro must have agreed because this mold is so solid, they actually heavily retooled this into a new incarnation of Generation 1 Chromia in the Thrilling 30 line. But I will say, as far as just being a fun Arcee toy, I really prefer just the second transformable Arcee. It's much more enjoyable to me as both, an action figure and a transforming toy. Like, yeah, she looks good and she's very posable, but she's got some oddities. I didn't really go too into it, but that extra swivel I talked about, how she's got the thigh swivel and the knee swivel, that knee swivel can make her pretty unstable in certain poses, because then her knees just kind of want to flop out to the side. It's not very tight. So, yeah, I prefer my first Arcee. And now for the final group shot, we get Arcee with the rest of the r.e.d. figures, including her wavemate, Cheetor. And yeah, you can see we're starting to get some variety in the designs now, right? You got your classic G1, your Beast Wars, your Prime. I will say that Prime and Beast Wars match each other a bit better because they're both CGI-based cartoon characters. And all in all, she looks good as a display piece. Despite all the flaws, despite the bad colors, she works pretty well. She poses pretty dynamically overall. I will say, I think Cheetor really comes out on top in this second wave. There are less complaints with this guy. Like, really, the only issue I had with Cheetor was that the face sculpt could have been better. His colors are just spot on. Get it? Yeah, spot on. Yeah. I mean, they really didn't compromise anything with him. With Arcee, I feel like maybe all the effort that went into Cheetor, sapped something away from her because they really cut back on the paint budget and, the quality and the colors that were used. I commented on Cheetor actually looking better in hand than his renders. Arcee's just the opposite. You can tell that they really downgraded her between the initial reveal and what we got. And I think that's really a shame. That kind of puts her in the same compromised category as, how I felt the first three were, where they just really didn't come out looking as good as they should have. So I think it's a real shame because I love Arcee as a character. She was one of the most well-developed characters in Transformers Prime, and in my opinion, probably the best incarnation of Arcee that we've had. She's kind of had that right mix of the mother figure that the original Arcee kind of took on, but also the Bamf warrior that you see in more modern interpretations. She was kind of right there, the perfect blend of human to robot surrogate and just awesome warrior. So I hate that they didn't really do her justice. Again, my favorite part of this whole package right here is the Energon cube. To me, it's the one thing that really didn't get screwed up. So, I don't know. I hate to sound that negative, but I feel they didn't give her the amount of love that they gave Cheetor, and it's a real shame because she's so cool. Now, I will say that her inclusion in the line does make me hopeful that we might get some more awesome Prime characters down the road. I already discussed the, possibility of maybe an Arachnid. I'd like to see that. Though she might, I don't know if they can do her, right? 'Cause she's got those big old spider leg things sticking out, and I don't know if they can fit her in the package. There is a rumored Knockout who's supposed to be on his way, which I'm all for because they didn't do Knockout justice either with his transforming toy. It just doesn't look as good as it should. Now, Arcee's got me a little kind of worried now because they messed up her color so badly. I don't want to see them, do the same thing to Knockout. That character, his whole thing is about being flashy and shiny and, just looking awesome. And if he comes in flat, boring colors, like, why even bother? Like, if he ends up looking something like these guys, why even make him? He's supposed to be really shiny, really slick looking. So we'll see. I hope if they do make Knockout, he ends up coming off a little bit better than Arcee. So am I disappointed I bought this figure? No. I still think she's really cool for what she is. It just bugs me knowing how much better she could have been if they just invested a little bit more into the paint budget. She could have been amazing. But they really let us down, and instead I'm just kind of left with this more lukewarm feeling of like, oh, it's cool, I guess. Wish it were better. But, of course, that is just how I feel about this new Arcee. Now I want to know what you all think of her. Does she scratch that itch for a show-accurate Arcee, or do you find problems with her? Do you think the pros outweigh the cons, or do you think that the issues with her are just too much for you to want to put the $20 down? Any and all feedback's always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the new Transformers Robot Enhanced Design Transformers Prime Arcee. And with all that said, I will see you next time.